what sex magic is, honestly, is like finding what I call the magic in the mundane and like letting these things, these daily things that we often overlook, take us to a whole other realm.
Welcome to Honey Do Me, a podcast that goes into the bedroom and beyond, hosted by Emma Norman
and Cass Anderson. Here at Honey Do Me, we don't have all the answers, so we chat with experts, educators, and badass changemakers to get them.
We are here to remind our listeners and ourselves that what we're going through is normal, that we are worthy of love and pleasure,
and that we are all in this together. So tell us, honey, how do you do you?
Sing 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1. 'Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it. 'Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it. 'Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it.
Hello.
What are we going to talk about?
Sexual magic and powers.
Magic and sex, my favorite words.
Sex magic.
Ooh, that's a Justin Timberlake song.
It is?
Sexy, dirty magic. Something like
Could you continue to sing it for me?
that. I trailed off. I couldn't do it.
Well, we won't subject you to that.
Yeah.
We're talking about sex magic this week. And if you don't know what that is, that's okay, because that's why you're here.
Yeah, because we also didn't know what sex magic was, which is why we had to find out.
Yeah. And the thing is, if you know what sex is, which hopefully you do by now, I feel like, granted, we've never had an episode specifically explaining
That's
what
our
sex
bad.
is.
That's our bad.
That's on us.
I'll take that.
We'll take the blame.
Yeah.
But if you know what sex is and you know what magic is, then you can start to make
Assumptions. Connecting some dots.
And you might not be too far off.
You probably know as much as we knew.
Powers coming from the tip of your pee-pee.
I wish that's what we talked about. How to yield your almighty sword, if you know what I mean. Just straight from the nipples, just like lasers. Exactly.
Yeah.
I really wish that's what happened. It's not quite.
Not quite, but just as powerful.
Yeah, just as powerful.
So today on the podcast, we have the priestess of passion, Ani. She is a spiritual and self-love coach who has the most amazing information. We had the most fun conversation. If you know Emma and I at all, you know that we
Even a
truly
drop.
believe we are on the verge of powers.
Yeah.
And it feels like Ani confirmed that for us.
Yeah, we really couldn't resist the urge of talking to someone whose whole life was revolved around sex magic.
So yeah, we really just needed the validation, and
And we looked
that's
to Ani
what
for
this
that.
entire podcast is about, if we're being honest.
If we're being completely honest, we reach out to you to tell me I'm pretty.
Yeah.
None of you
So?
have. It's
Am I?
really rude.
I'm truly offended. You've said how much this has helped you, but you have yet to say how pretty I am. Asshole.
Asshole. God damn it. So yeah, we get it. This topic could be so outside of your wheelhouse, but I'm telling you, it was such a down-to-earth, realistic conversation about tapping into yourself and using that as your magical power.
Ani's whole thing is that home is in your bones. So it's
Yeah.
this idea of like going back home to your body, because a lot of the time we look outside of ourselves for the answers to whatever we're going through or whatever we're feeling, or to help us or to make us feel better. When what Ani helps us do is get back into our bodies, because the answers are already within us, which I think is really cool and empowering, because we're constantly searching for something.
Yeah,
And it's so fucking hard to find because it's not out there.
absolutely.
In here.
In my skin suit.
In my vagina.
Oh.
It is.
Okay, fine. I honestly think
I could have said in my butthole, so.
you could have, and you did. To be honest, I think everyone can find a part of themselves in what Ani is talking about. There's nothing in this information that isn't going to be like enlightening in some way.
Everybody can get something out of this episode. There is truly something
Yeah.
for everyone in sex magic, even if it sounds a little scary, even if it sounds like
It's so
it doesn't align with your
right.
religion.
It's so fun. It's so beautiful. Even if you hate us, stay for Ani.
Stay for Ani. She's worth it. I promise.
Yeah. So,
We'll see you on the other side. Honey bun.
honey buns. Okay, bye.
Bye. Well, why don't we just start out by having you introduce yourself to our listeners and tell us a little bit about your story?
Yeah. So my name is Ani. And well, I started off in my life being like one of the most like anxious children of all time. And then growing up and becoming a young adult. And then, in my college years, I found like myself to be very disconnected from life, having either like really, really big emotions or like being totally numbed out. And sexuality was totally freaky to me. My body was totally freaky. Like spirituality was totally freaky. And I was just like not having it. So I went on a quest in my college years because I'm like, this just like can't be it. Like this cannot be what life is. Like there has to be more here. And like if I'm also like, I feel so blessed in so many ways and I have so much privilege and I'm still just like not feeling life. Like there must be something wrong here. So I went on a quest to find some answers. And in that I immersed myself in many different healing trainings. And I studied with like an old witch. I studied astrology. I studied all of the things. And honestly, the biggest answers that I have found was to actually just be in your body. And how I found the key to that is through connecting with my sexuality and my pleasure and ultimately like finding God there. Like that's like a very real thing. Like we often think of like spirituality as something that's up and out and far away, when in reality, like all of this lives inside of our bones, including like the energy of the earth and all of the things. So to be able to like connect in everything, like how you connect with your body and yourself is really how you connect with everything in life. It's kind of like the baseline. So I made it my personal purpose to like begin to unearth all of this stuff. And I have just taken that and ran with it. So that is like kind of a brief history of my experience.
I love it. I feel like I'm already feeling so inspired by your stories and your experiences.
I'm just in awe.
I know. So is one of the experiences that you found that really helped like enlighten you, you mentioned on your website where you're in like a red slip dress and motorcycle boots up Mount Shasta.
Oh, yes.
Could you tell us a little bit about what that was?
Okay. Yeah, I guess we can deepen that whole, I was like a very brief overview. So basically, everything I do is pretty on brand for me. And I also, one of my biggest passions is to bring some authenticity into the spiritual realm, because I find that we can oftentimes give up so much of ourselves and so much of the glorious parts of ourselves to try and be like super spiritual and like breathe the same way and use the same language and all this stuff. So I decided it would be a great idea to, I was living in New York at the time and I have a very distinct style. I put on my, red silk dress. It was a slip. It was a vintage slip. And I wore motorcycle boots and I had no idea what I was really getting myself into. I like had barely been outside before. And, and I hiked up this mountain all by my lonesome in my slip dress and my motorcycle boots to try and find God. And I was fasting and I was like totally devoted to this. And this was my first like spiritual, quote unquote, spiritual experience. And, that works for some people. And the path I walk, I mean, that hasn't yet been my thing, maybe one day, but I go on this mountain and the whole time I'm up there, I'm like, I am so fucking hungry. I'm like not having a spiritual experience. I like looked up in the sky, like looking at the clouds, and all I could see was like chicken parm and like the mozzarella like parting from the clouds. I'm like, okay, this is like not what spiritual people think and like all this stuff. And so I kind of like threw a little bit of a fit. I was like, how am I've done all of this. How am I still not getting it? And it was actually when I released the big emotion about like, oh, like I'm failing. This is not it. This is not real. I'm in this motorcycle, in my motorcycle boots and this dress. And like, I'm thinking of chicken parm. Like none of this is right. Where I was able to actually crack open and hear what I needed to hear. And I think that is such a reflection of so much of, what I do in my work is like transmuting emotions, like being with them, letting them flow, and then finding like the truth behind them. So after that experience, I actually was like, oh, I need to move out of New York and move to Oregon for a while and start to study healing, and immerse myself into that. So those motorcycle boots, they took me into a far out place, let me tell you, and I'm very grateful for that experience. But I also found that you don't have to do all that to find spirituality. Like I also find it at a dinner table, and also like self-pleasuring, and also like with my morning cup of coffee. And that's like a huge part of what sex magic is, honestly, is like finding what I call the magic in the mundane, and like letting these things, these daily things that we often overlook, take us to a whole other realm.
I like got chills over my body when you're explaining that. I just love how much that you are emphasizing, like, you don't have to change who you are and what you're interested in and how you speak, like, to find spirituality. Like, that can be a part of anyone.
Yes, I was going to say the same thing. Like when you said, just making sure you're being authentic and bringing in your own authenticity to that. I know, like, I've seen so many people, so many spiritual people, so many influencers that I'm like, oh, I want to be just like them. I want to do that, but I'm so not like them.
Right.
Like, I'm not super quiet and I don't like certain things that they like. I've tried them and it doesn't work for me.
Right.
And so like that allowing of your authenticness and yourself, I think that's so beautiful.
So you don't have to feel like you're failing if you're not interested in all the same things that like people that you're looking up to are interested in. You can find it just right inside yourself and what you already do. And I love that. That's a great message.
Yeah, and that's, this is all rooted in Tantra. Like Tantra was made for the everyday person, for the people who weren't like the mystics that go off and live on mountains and all the things. It's to actually like find God in self-expression. And when I say God, I mean, I don't necessarily mean like the God that some of us know. It's like your divinity, like divinity itself, like magic, and it's a powerful thing to find these big magical experiences in what makes you you, because the way I see it as well, like if we have this like creator force, which also lives inside of us, which we can dive into once we start talking more about specifically sex magic. But if we have this creator, I invite like everyone to think about like when you see a parent and they're just like watching their kid do something that's so them, like this weird kid doing this weird thing. The parent usually busts out their iPhone and starts filming and it's like, oh my God. And I like to think of like divinity doing that to us. Like no one wants everyone to be like a cookie cutter version. And there's also so much magic in being a messy, nuanced, like just human. Like there's just so much divinity in your humanity, whether you're like binge watching Sex in the City or like on a mountain meditating or like making out with someone or like, going for a swim. Like all of those things are aliveness. And I'm so for like just having it amplify your own aliveness, you're like feeding into it. So yeah, it's a really important message because I think we've all tried to like go down the rabbit hole of like spiritual influencer and, it's kind of like the hand over heart thing, like talk really slow with like not a whole lot of enthusiasm. And while I love and appreciate that, I'm not like making fun of it, but not all of us are like that.
Yeah.
And I personally am like very fiery and it would just be like abandoning myself, which is what I think the most like sacrilegious thing in the world to do is to abandon yourself, right?
That's like a whole new force of like energize that I just got from your definition and like how you explain it and feeling like fiery and alive, and just finding spirituality and like your God that you said in like swimming. That's cute. Like that brought me so much peace.
I think so much of what we look up to is outside of ourselves as well. Like we put all of this stuff outside of ourselves on a pedestal and we love it so much, but then we're so hard on ourselves for being messy, for being ourselves, for not being like others. And so I think when we realize like that divinity is in ourselves, it's like, oh, I can love myself just as much as I've been loving all the things around me.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's exactly it. And so much of what I talk about as well is like finding the home in your bones. Like what are the things that make you feel so you? And I think music is a really powerful portal to that. And I also think like the way you commune with your body is such a powerful ticket back home to yourself, especially when life gets really wild and we have like these very necessary experiences of loss, of grief, of like your life kind of falling apart at the seams. Like when we have a connection with our body and we have a connection with ourselves and we have a connection with like the very real cycles of life, of nature, of our menstrual cycles, of the moon cycles, like all of these things, it creates this like very deep magical existence. Because even when shit hits the fan, you're like, oh, this sucks so bad and it hurts. And also there's something happening here. And having that home in your bones and having anchors that help to bring you back into your bodies is huge. It's so nourishing.
Mm-hmm. I'm just going to live in that for a minute.
I am just ready to dive right into this and just explore everything that you said deeper because I'm sold.
Yeah.
I'm ready for my home to be in my bones. I'm ready to come home. Let's get into ritual first because we've watched a lot of your videos and a lot of what you talk about has to do with ritual. So I would love to just break that down because I think when a lot of us think of ritual, we think of a lot of candles, a lot of crystals in the moonlight on a very specific field. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's kind of where my head goes. So I would love to know how you define ritual.
Yeah. So I totally hear that. Like ritual can sound almost like alarming sometimes. And also it can sound like you need to know exactly what you're doing and like doing it on the exact hour at the exact right day. And like, while there's some practices that are like that, I personally subscribe to like ritual as being bringing your whole body and your whole mind and your intention online with whatever it is you're doing. So that's like that magic in the mundane. So you can have a ritual with your morning cup of coffee where like you're watching, you know, the sunrise or something. And you're like, that is when you take like 5 breaths within yourself and feel what's actually alive for you. Like what actually is going on in your body and what you're actually feeling. Morning pages is like in that book, The Artist's Way, where you just like brain dump for 3 pages. Like that's a ritual to me, right? I do that every morning where I connect with like my flow and just kind of let whatever comes out. And then ritual can also be, you can make anything into a ritual, anything. It's just a matter of like connection, which is what I think the number one thing that we as human beings crave the most. And what in this part of history, what we're lacking the most is genuine, authentic connection. So I'm such a huge advocate for turning things into rituals so that we have that sense of connection. It brings that sense of aliveness into what you're doing. And like when you taste that cup of coffee, it's like, what are you actually tasting? Like, can you actually let that little cup of coffee, that sip of that cup of coffee feed you? Because I guarantee you, you can when you think about it, right? When you're actually experiencing it. But a lot of us are going life kind of on autopilot because life can be so tremendously overwhelming. And, you know, we live in a very capitalistic society that's like, go, 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 hustle, hustle, hustle. Like that's also deeply patriarchal. So we're taught to not feel, to not drop in, to not experience, and to just like kind of override everything. So I find ritual to be the remedy for all of those things. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
100%. And I like thinking about ritual, like how you said with a morning cup of coffee too, because we forget where we find pleasure. Like we get so focused on things that like maybe feel uncomfortable, we don't love about our day, and we take for granted the times that we actually have pleasure. And that could be the thing that you do just every morning when you wake up or when you walk the dog in the afternoon. Like all of those things could be a ritual that are really like important and sacred to you and like make you feel really good and just connect you and like let you drop into your body, like you're saying. You mention a little bit about how like ritual and neuroscience. So what do you mean by that?
Yes. So then there are rituals that are a little bit more crafted. So the rituals that I teach are rooted in movement, breath, and sound. And so when we are looking at ritual, we can see that like the Western industrialized world is really the only one that doesn't have this space and time to release. Like we kind of have these very like puritanical views, like you sit up straight, you don't really express emotion. It's like a faux pas, like all of the things. Whereas in other places, there's drumming, there's moving, there's like somatic movement, dancing around a fire, like all of these different things. And like womb dancing, and it just allows us to complete stress cycles in our body. So when we're actually sounding, breathing, moving our bodies, we can move out all of the stuck emotion that's in our bodies, all of like that stuck energy. And because like think about every time you are like feeling like that feeling that's like and you keep it in your body and your whole body like clenches, right? And then if you see an animal on like Animal Planet, for example, like it outruns this lion and it survives, and this lion was trying to eat it, it outruns it, it survives. You'll notice it does this thing where it just shakes its whole body out, and it's discharging that trauma from the nervous system. And then they can go about their day in less in a less kind of state of shock. We don't really do that. That's why when I say like I find God everywhere, even on the dance floor of a club, like you're really releasing like so much. You're moving your body, you're moving energy, you're connecting with your body. So that's really one of the only spaces besides working out that we connect with our bodies. And when we have ritual where you're moving, breathing, and sounding, not only can you release, but you can also begin to work with your breath to create new neural pathways in your brain, to create new depth and new experiences. And it's such a powerful time to connect with yourself. So when we drop into ritual with movement, breath, and sound, we're able to actually like start to release these things, to start to feel into like the actual sensations of our body and start to read our body as an oracle and like connect with all of the different versions of ourselves that are alive.
I love that idea of moving stagnant energy. I think like a lot is clicking for me right now. And I realize like I've been seeing myself numbing a lot. I think a lot of us are probably numbing ourselves a lot because of everything that's going on, probably more than normal. And so I feel a lot of stuck energy in my body. Like it just feels like a heaviness and like things just aren't moving the way that they should. But I also don't really allow myself a lot of release. And it feels like the more I let that stagnant energy kind of like stack up, the less motivation I have to release it and to do something to release it. Because I think I've kind of gotten like used to that feeling and am almost like addicted to that feeling. I've kind of talked about that before in episodes, like being almost addicted to like these negative states of being. And I feel like that's kind of how I've gotten with the stuck energy. So I love that like explanation of ritual and how to really release that energy.
And it really makes sense with the neuroscience and like pathways and stuff, because the more you practice something, the more it becomes like a part of your neurological pathways to like feel good from this ritual, from this behavior. And like those deep breaths have like been proven through anything. Like you can find studies on anything that breath helps you do, just like calm down and drop into your body. And so that totally makes sense that like scientifically, this is going to help just move and shake that everything in your body. Shake it all out physically and everything.
Yes. Yeah. And, you know, as far as like being in those states of when you're just like, you're having all that energy stuck inside of you, I invite you to even like switch the language around that, because it's not necessarily even a negative experience. It's sometimes necessary for us to numb out and to have those experiences, because like sometimes life can be really overwhelming and our systems like kind of know what to do. And also like when we start to even just slightly, like even if you're sitting down right now, just like slightly move your hips, just rock your spine from side to side, like this starts to move that. And it's like, we can feel like it's like this big, huge mountain we have to climb, when it's in reality, it's like just even the most subtle, like letting your body know you're listening and like that you're here for it. It starts to like really shift that in such a deep way. So your ritual could literally just be like to circle your spine before you record the podcast for 5 seconds, you know, and that's like
do that right now.
There we go. Yeah. So that brings up a question for me, because I've noticed when I start to do so, I've done a few like breathwork sessions before. I've done, you know, similar work before. But when I do, and when I start to really like feel into my body, it feels very uncomfortable and almost like not, I don't want to say painful, but just very, very uncomfortable. And like, I don't want to keep doing it.
Welcome. Welcome.
Is this what coming home is?
Well, think about, this is how I like to think about that. A lot of the times when we're used to like not fully being in our bodies and we come home to ourselves and we turn on the light in a room that hasn't been touched in a very long time, there's going to be like just all versions of ourselves that are like feral and like things like just like, mice and all the things. Like it can be this kind of like crunchy experience because
that's a great
we
word
have all of these like things that are in us, So it actually still takes me time, even though I'm really devoted to this practice. There are times where I'm like, I don't want to do this. Like I am not in the mood to like have a breathwork session. And sometimes I honor that. And sometimes I know that it's like something that I need to like kind of push through, because ultimately what happens with me personally is when I breathe through it, I actually have a big release of anger and of frustration and like actually allowing that anger to move through me, where I like stomp around the room, or I'll like hit a pillow, or I'll just like, growl. Like it sounds like really, if you told me even a few years ago that I would be like growling on the floor, I'd be like, okay, because I was so caught up in like, making sure I came off as like pretty and proper and like all, I don't know if I ever came off as proper, but at least pretty, right? But in that experience, when you start to drop deeper and deeper in, you'll notice that you're not really thinking as much. Your cortical thinking actually begins to like turn off and you're going deeper into the body. And when that happens, all of these deep somatic releases can come through. The thing is to make sure, I always recommend working with someone with breath work, because breath work is so deep and so it can bring up so much. That it's really, I think, important to have some space held for you while you're diving into it for the first time, because it can bring up those experiences that are more difficult to integrate and be with. So I totally hear you. And I invite you to like, just be really, this is such a new age term, like a wellness term, but like, just be really gentle with yourself and just notice like, oh, I'm feeling this. Like, is this something I feel like ready to release? Like if I quicken my breath, if I deepen my breath, like, can I actually move this, like this anger or this uncomfort, or maybe I'm feeling fear. Part of breathwork is feeling uncomfortable. You get tetany in your hands, which can make your hands feel like numb, and it can start to like kind of like lose control over it.
Yes.
You can feel, one time I was doing breathwork and my freaking body just kind of flopped to the other side. Like I like a fish. And I was like, okay, like that happened.
Wait, why can that happen?
That was just my body releasing something.
Oh,
that was
wow.
just my body just giving like a big, just like release. Like my body twitched in such a way. I'm not saying that will happen to anybody or everybody. I'm simply saying that was my experience. And it was a big, like for me, a big release of fear that was stuck in my body. So, yes, highly recommend getting support with any kind of breath work that you do choose to do. And also, being uncomfortable is a part of the process.
Yeah, I did like a group, like a virtual like breathwork session with Brie Melanson. I love Brie Melanson. I think she's so cool. I've done a few things with her, but my like limbs were tingling. My like chest felt so weird, and it was my pelvis that hurt. Like it was the most uncomfortable. And I have a lot of like issues that could be related to my pelvic region. Like I struggle with endometriosis or whatever is going on with me, but just like so much is there for me. And it was so uncomfortable. I like kept almost like having to like convulse my body because it just felt so uncomfortable. It was very intense. Wow. And I felt really weird after.
Yeah.
But it felt really good. I journaled like for a long time after, and it felt really good. But it was, I thought it was a meditation, and it wasn't. It was more than that. So yeah, definitely important to set this space and let everybody know what could like potentially go down in those spaces, because it can
it can bring up all of those feelings, and it can be really intense to integrate.
Could you
So,
give a short definition of breath work for people that haven't, like, have no idea what? Before I had literally no idea. I'm like, is it just like deep breaths in and out for?
There's all different kinds of breath work, and there's all different kinds of breathing. So a lot in my work, I use connected breath in and out of the mouth, because what that does is actually highlight the felt sense inside of your body. So you will feel your sensations more, because so much of my work is rooted in the sensations of your body and listening to them, again, to find those different pieces and parts of you, to release them, and not the parts of you, but to release the stuck energy or emotions in your body. And you can have different kinds of experiences with that. Like if you have a connected breath in and out of your mouth, and it's slow and it's steady and it's deep and it's sensual, it's a very like sensual, like erotic experience. And if you do it like quick and like quick and deep, it's like, it's a very clearing, intense experience. So I don't often use that one. I think that we can often, we're a society that's really, really attached to intensity. And while I think intensity is good sometimes, to blow open someone is not always the best choice when we're doing this work. It's kind of more like a soft opening. That's what I like to work with. So that's why I'm such a huge fan of working with a guide who can really work you, like kind of bring you through all of this, because there's also breath work where it's in through the nose, out through the mouth. There's breath work that is like you fill up your chest and then your belly, and all different practitioners use different experiences. That's the one I like to use, is the connected breathing. And I only use that if I know somebody's medical history and all of the things like that. So that is my definition of breath work.
Okay, well, we've teased it long enough, I think. I would love to go into sex magic now, because I can't freaking wait. So let's just start with a basic definition of what sex magic is. What is it?
Okay. So my favorite topic ever, because it is fucking transformative to reclaim two of the most taboo experiences, like sex and magic, put it together. Like if I was, if this was back in the day, like I would have been like immediately burned at the stake. But
we would have been there with you.
Yeah. These are our two favorite topics.
Yeah. We wouldn't have powers yet, but we'd be curious.
Yeah. On the verge is what we say.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it. So sex magic is using your sexual energy as like this creational raw fuel, because your sexual energy is like it is aliveness itself. It is creational energy itself. And when we commune with our sexuality as a means of like divinity, in the sense that like you could use this to not only like quote unquote manifest your desires, but also to like anchor in experiences into your nervous system and your body. So like I use sex magic to connect with the energy of safety, and when I'm feeling anxious. And I use sex magic to also like visualize and dream of like what it is that I deeply desire. So it is both like energetic, and it's also deeply rooted in neuroscience. So it's a powerful, powerful, powerful thing. But basically, yeah, it's using your sexuality as a way to create, and not just babies. It's
other things.
That's the short definition.
Well, fuck yeah. So when you're using your sex magic, is that like dropping in to a ritual? Like how are you accessing, your sexuality in that way to use it as like a power or like a tool for manifestation?
Where's the magic wand?
Where's my magic wand? And is it her?
In that body of yours. It is like, it is right there. So your sexual energy, it's whether or not you're in ritual, it is something that is aliveness itself. It's something that is that creational energy. So when you're intentional with it and you direct it somewhere, like I have used sex magic for prayer, for prayer, like when there has been natural disasters or societal disasters, like putting my like prayer into it and sending it out that way. And I have used sex magic to like, pray for the earth and all of the things. So when you're actually intentional about like where you want to direct this very potent energy, that's where the magic part comes in. And yeah, it is one of the most powerful experiences ever, because it is opening up that deep awareness that like, oh, think about how much goes into sex. Or like even when you're having sex with yourself, like think about like all of the feeling, all of the sensation, all of the energy in your body just like bubbling. And like imagine just taking that energy out of your body and like putting it into something that you either want to call in, want to create, want to help heal, like all of the things. Like that is the single most powerful thing ever, right?
Right.
So yeah, it's really being intentional. So when it comes to like manifesting something, and our deepest desires. First of all, sex magic helps us to also see that our desires are actually like really sacred. And we have a lot of taboo around desire in and of itself, because we're like, oh no, I don't need anything. I'm totally good with whatever. And it's like, that's not actually that pious. Like when we claim our desires, it's a pathway to our truth. Even if your desires are claiming like 15 Prada handbags, we could start to dig into like, well, what does that mean for you? Like, what is that actually like bringing up for you? What are you making that mean? And start to like unearth the core desire that's there. So as we go deeper into that, you can start to see like, oh, I have this deep desire, let's say for writing a book. I have a message that I want to get out there. And so you notice also that like you want to write this book, you have the desire, but you actually like go to type out the book and your brain just shuts down. Or like you actually write the book, but when it comes to actually sending it in, you're like, oh, nope, this sucks. And you shut down the project forever. This is something that can happen a lot. It can happen in love. It can happen in, you know, these kinds of like work things, all of the things. So what sex magic can do, how it comes into play in this scenario, is that it can actually help you to your deep brain and body know that it can survive having what you desire, which is wild. And this is where the neuroscience part comes in. Because a lot of the times, even if we want something that's really beautiful, like deep intimacy or love or to write a book, there is a part of us that is like, oh, but that's the unknown. I've never experienced that. So our primal brain will literally be like, the unknown equals death. And then it'll send all these stories
That's
to
how
your
Cass
mind.
feels constantly. You're not wrong.
Like, you're going to die. Like, get it together. What are you thinking? And then all of a sudden there's stories that are like, oh no, I just don't have what it takes. Or like, oh no, like, this is shit. I'm not good at this, you know, whatever. And then it shuts it down because that's keeping you like, quote unquote, in your comfort zone. But really like to have such deep compassion for yourself in that space, because there is this genuine, very deeply human part of you that's like, I'm terrified. So when you bring your pleasure and your sexuality on board and you actually use your sensuality to like sense by sense, feel, taste, hear, touch, see like this book in your hands, you're actually creating not only a roadmap to know like when you're really living this, but you're also like, your brain can't tell the difference between fantasy and reality. So you're also letting your brain know like, oh, I can survive this. And then you're bringing your nervous system into a state of pleasure. You're opening up these neural pathways. You're like, it's like when you start to use sex magic, it's like saying affirmations on steroids. And it brings it into your body and into your deep brain. So all parts of your brain and body are online to this experience. So it's not just thinking about it, because we know that that doesn't always work. Most of the time it doesn't work because there's all these parts of us that are cut off and terrified. So sex magic helps to bring it all on board and then like really make it come to life. And then you're energetically taking that big bubbling, like beautiful sexual creative energy and like kind of like lighting it up. So that's the longer experience of sex magic. It's raw fuel. And you're bringing all of this desire, all of this experience into a higher and higher state. And it's like you're bringing yourself into alignment with what it is that you want on a deep level.
That sounds, one, so fucking powerful. And then, okay,
Yeah.
I have a really stupid question, and you all are free to laugh at me if it sounds dumb. Are you ever like reaching orgasm when you're trying to access these powers, since it's coming from like the sexual being inside of you?
Oh, of course. Yeah, that's
Okay,
such a
that doesn't
that's
feel
such a
stupid
part of
anymore.
the
Okay.
process. Oh my God, not a stupid question at all. That's actually a great question because a lot of the time, like, that's actually one of the most common questions.
Okay.
Basically, you would be you want to release the agenda to orgasm because we as a society also have like a deep addiction to like just orgasm. When I say
Right.
addiction, I mean like the pressure of like you
Yeah.
must orgasm, that's what sex is.
That's how you
And then
know
we
that you
ignore
checked it off the
It's
list.
always the
Okay,
goal.
it's done.
Mhm.
Yeah.
yeah. And then we ignore all of like the beautiful subtle pleasure that's happening. And
The
then
journey.
also like to connect with your body in a way that is not like inherently sexual, but actually from a place of like, this is my portal to the deepest magic. And like, being able to self-pleasure from that space, like without an agenda, but with like just deep reverence and knowing that like you're stoking your own energy. It's a whole different experience. And then as you're doing that, you can introduce whatever it is you're calling in. So that's either that like what I was taught. My teacher Layla taught me this, and it's the 5 senses reality. And that's that roadmap of like, I will taste this, I will touch this, I will feel, all of the different things. Or if you're doing more of like a nurturing practice around safety, like just connecting with the energy of safety, like breathing it into your body. What does safety actually feel like in your body? And self-pleasuring, like making love to this experience, to the experience of safety in your body, or the experience of divinity, or the experience of love or belonging. Like these are the things that are so, so, so powerful. And then when you're feeling like you're there, you can actually allow yourself to climax if that's available to you, if that's where your body's naturally going. And as you do that, that's when you can shoot it out into the universe, like shooting it out to whatever it is that you answer to, like whether it's God or goddess or the universe or love or your higher self. And then feel it like rain back down on you as you're like coming down from that climax, like feel it coming back into your body and like just cocooning you. And like that is the like most beautiful orgasm
I'm
ever.
gonna need to have longer orgasms. Get all of that done.
So do you like yell it out loud as you're
Yeah,
like what you
you-
want?
That
Does
is
that make
like
sense?
personal preference.
Okay.
Like there are some people who
Just
like
scream
totally
it.
would do that. Yeah, just completely like yodel it into the void. Like that's available if you
feels
so
right.
desire. But I personally, I like to just like whisper it because actually like when you're in that state, saying an affirmation while you're self-pleasuring and opening yourself up and even doing like a really gentle, slow like breath work of like just breathing in and out of your mouth really slowly if there are no contraindications for you. What that can do again is like make that affirmation like just so much more powerful. And then when you actually hear yourself say it out loud, it sinks even deeper. So I will like, self-pleasure and then just be like, safety, safety, safety. Like I am safe, I am safe, I am safe. And that goes so, so, so deep into my system. I usually don't climax in those experiences personally, just because I'm just being with that felt sense of safety and really connecting with like, because a lot of the times too, we don't even know, we're not even fully conscious of like what safety would feel like in a body or like what love actually feels like. But when you can feel safety as like this warmth in your lower belly and you're just continuing to connect with that and you're self-pleasuring and you're letting it into your system, I mean, that is powerful. So I like to whisper it, sometimes yodeling into the void, sometimes it's just a silent thing and you're just visualizing it in your head, like you're seeing it, feeling it, touching it, experiencing it like in your like kind of altered, it's really an altered state of consciousness in a big way. So yeah, there's many options. It's kind of like, it goes along with that authentic spirituality and like where you're at and what your personality is,
Yeah, I realize now I kind of knew, but when I am masturbating, I do use affirmations but only during
Mm.
orgasm because I think I listened to a podcast somewhere that was just talking about that. But the other thing that I've been trying to do.
Wait, what is that? What do you mean?
I say I love myself.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah.
Okay.
What did you think?
I love it.
I thought
I'm going to be
it
so successful. No,
was
sorry, I
definitely
should have clarified. No, I say I
all
love
the money
myself.
in the world as you're like orgasm.
I am dripping in money.
I just wanted to clear that up for my own like visual reference.
Sorry to disappoint.
it's-
I only say I love myself.
That's perfect. I'm okay. Please continue.
Anyways, yes, I will continue. Another thing I've been trying to do, I think I must have read this somewhere too, but I notice, and I'm sure this is true for a lot of people, when I orgasm, my like automatic response is to kind of like tense up, but I've been
Mhm.
trying to really like relax
Huh.
during that
Yeah.
time,
Uh-huh.
and it's hard.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is. That's so normal, especially in the solar plexus. Like people often clench specifically in the solar plexus, like when they're orgasming or about to orgasm. And that is totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And if you're wanting to soften and like just breathe, deepening your breath can really help with that. And sounding can really help with that. It helps to move the energy. Like how we release energy from our bodies again is that movement, breath, and sound. So if you're finding yourself tensing, I invite you to just like swirl around a little bit, like maybe move your neck, like, and just like let it come out of your throat, like let sound come out of your throat. It's going to feel crunchy at first because you're like, I must like look so weird and like all of the things. And also it can lead to the most beautiful sexual experiences. It can also help if like orgasm does feel far away and it's something you're desiring to continue to do that. Because actually, fun fact, our jaws and our pelvic areas are directly linked. And so when our jaw is tense and our throat is tense, our sexual centers are also tense. So when we sound and we loosen our jaw and we breathe, it helps to relax our pelvic bowl, and then we are able to experience more pleasure. So definitely I would give that a whirl if that's something you're desiring.
That would make a lot of sense. I always have a clenched jaw, like just as a side note. I think it's a part of how I'm just designed. But yeah, then you just feel like tension all over your body when your jaw's tensed. It goes into like your neck and your shoulders. So it makes sense that it would travel all the way down. And it's funny that we talk about like being embarrassed while like doing things while you're orgasming, but it's like that fake audience that you're embarrassed is watching you. It's like no one else is there, but you're embarrassed to like fully express yourself while you're literally masturbating.
literally like the invisible audience. What a visual.
Yeah.
That is hilarious. That's so true though.
100%.
We've talked about like loved ones who have passed away though.
Yeah, when you're thinking that like your dead
Fear.
relatives are like watching you just from some universe. Yeah. That too. That's why
That's a
I
real
literally
such a
pleasure
real-
I
killer.
was the only one who thought of that. That is so
no,
funny.
100%, like 99% of the time, right after I'm done, I'm like, oh my God.
I'm sorry, Grandma.
That was the worst thing that's ever happened to them.
I feel like when they cross over though, they'll be like, they know that
Right?
sex is awesome, and they'd be like, you know what, good for you, honey. Like
That's
you do
what
your
I
thing.
hope.
They're
love that
cheering
they-
you on. Your audience is supportive of you.
Or I hope
Yeah.
they turn away. Like they don't stick around.
Who's to say?
I personally would like a round of applause when I'm done. Like, just,
That's
let me
so
know what
funny.
you thought. Like and subscribe.
So I downloaded your Sex Magic ebook, which I'm very excited to read. But do you also do classes with Sex Magic? Like, is there anything that you like teach for people like before COVID that was in person, or do you have like group rituals? Like, how does that work if you're showing someone how to do Sex Magic?
So a few things. So the first one is like, yes, pre-COVID, I would do in-person gatherings. We would never do anything sexual. It was, I would teach the breath work circuit of Sex Magic, and then teach them like when they get home, how they would either use self-pleasure or use like be with their partner and have the experience. So I would take them through the whole ritual of like turning on the senses. And I personally think that chocolate in any ritual is highly
Ooh,
necessary.
fuck
So
yeah.
like lots of chocolate and like, tea and like all of the things to make it super sensual and beautiful and amazing. So that is, and I would always do new and full moon ceremonies as well in person. And then my one-on-one coaching experience, which I call Initiation into Aliveness, this is where we go really deep into sex magic and all of the different facets of sex magic, nourishing, and also like we do sex magic to create their core desire that we kind of, it's very desire based, and instead of like focusing on like what's wrong, we focus on what the desire is, and then anything that comes up we integrate and we bring in with so much love, and we kind of like make love to it all. And in that experience, again, I teach in the session, like on Zoom, I teach the breath work, and like we use our sensual energy and our breath on the Zoom calls. And then I make pre-recorded rituals, which is like my favorite part. I make all of these pre-recorded rituals, and then I'll make a playlist on Spotify to go along with it to like amplify whatever it is that we're doing. So I feel like a DJ, and it's like one of my favorite things come true. And yeah, that's when they would take it home and do the practice, like the pre-recorded ritual that I made for them. And do that with their sexuality, because I find that people are far more comfortable doing it on their own rather than on a Zoom call with me where I'm like, you're doing great, honey. Like, keep going.
Keep going.
I'm totally down for
a
that.
non-invisible audience.
A very, very visible audience.
Yeah.
No, but I love that you make a playlist too, because that's exactly how I need to like drop into any experience, whether I'm like meditating or just trying to breathe. Or
Sweet jams.
I need some sweet ass jams that go along with
jam.
the vibe. So that's so cool that you are doing that and living out your DJ dreams. I mean, perfect combination.
It's honestly, really, it's dream come true. And I also have another thing that I teach sex magic in is called body magic, where we use, it's like kind of a new take on the body positivity movement, where instead of focusing on what your body looks like and how good you look in your body or anything like that, it's focusing on the power that your body wields. So for example, you know, your lower belly in Taoism is the dwelling place of the soul, your dantian. In this space, like it is literally like where your soul lives, and what is the one place we're taught to alter the most is our bellies, you know? And so this is a space where we use sex magic, we use pleasure, we reclaim our bodies, we name the conditioning that we got, we name where it stems from, which is, you know, really toxic things. And we start to not only like release, like using movement, breath, and sound, like you stomp around, you hit pillows, you scream, you do all the things. You also like resource and pleasure. You feed your body pleasure. You start to relate to this in this new way. And like, what if your body was the portal to God? Like, what if not only it's your sexuality and your sexual energy inside of you, but it's also like your like body is what connects you to the moon. Your body is what connects you to the earth. We have these things inside of us. Like if you menstruate, it's completely in alignment with the moon, 28.5 days around, you know, like, and, you know, it's just a powerful, powerful experience. We also experience the seasons inside of us, and we experience all of these different energy points that can connect us to the exact things we want to embody. So it's about focusing on the way your body feels and the magic that it holds, rather than what it looks like and how it's coming off. And like your body is your home. It's not a temple. It's not something far away from you. It's not something that's like sacred and scary. It's something that is your home, where you can like kick off your shoes, light some candles, like take off your bra and like lay on the couch and be like, yes, like, I love it.
I think that's beautiful. And I think thinking of our bodies as like the way to connect to God, to spirit, to goddess, like if that was your connection, how would you treat yourself? Like, how would you look at yourself? Would you still say, like, I hate my body? Would you still say, like, I hate my stomach? I hate this part. Like, I wish I could change it? Like, probably not.
Probably not. Yeah, absolutely.
That's a huge shift. I mean, obviously, no matter what, I think we'll all have hard body days given the society that we live in and the way that makes us feel. But, well, you mentioned menstruation, and that was exactly where I wanted to head. I am
Yes.
fascinated by the menstrual cycle. I have been for a long time. It's just something I'm very
Mhm.
passionate about, and the destigmatization of it, and then also like the
Mhm.
spiritual connection to it. I would love for you to just dive right into that.
Oh, yes. I mean, how much shame is around menstruation, and when it's really one of the most powerful experiences. And, you know, the beautiful thing about menstruation, I also want to name, like, if you're not someone who menstruates, like, you have the same connection with the moon, and like, and having that live inside of you as well, because it is all like deeply energetic. So just naming that before we dive in. So your menstruation is so incredibly powerful because it is like what connects you to life and death. There is this womb inside of you, and this womb at each month experiences a mini life and a mini death, whether or not you are conceiving or anything like that. It's just that portal. It also is the energy of like the infinite universe. Like your womb and your cervix and your body, like your whole, like what some people call a yoni, your pussy, like all of it is the exact thing. It's like it's the energy of the great creatrix of the whole universe that lives right in your body. So anytime you're having a bad body day, being like, okay, well, I actually have like the energy of creation literally inside of
I
me.
am the portal,
And
bitches.
I am the night sky. Like that's really what it's like. And it's this kind of infinite mystery that lives inside of you, where when you start to tune into it, and you can experience like being with death, like using your menstruation like as a ritual in and of itself. So when you do bleed, what are you shedding? What are you letting go of? What are you releasing? Also using your blood as prayer, because your blood, your menstrual blood is actually only about 28% blood, and the rest are like all of the nutrients that would go towards raising a baby, you know, or like, you know, feeding a baby. So it's dense nutrients, and it's really, really powerful. It's like one of the most powerful things for manifestation. So when you are connecting with it, like not only what are you shedding, but what are you also claiming? So in PMS, you know, in my house, it means please make space, because you're actually like entering an altered state of consciousness. That's not to say you're irrational. So I want to make that very clear. It's when our hormones dip and we have less of a capacity for bullshit, and we see truth in such a deep way. When we like, especially in the first part of the luteal phase, because it's actually the longest, like after you ovulate, you enter the luteal phase. The first week, when we actually start to feel any emotions that are coming up, and we process the emotions by moving, breathing, sounding, and being with it, we can enter into the PMS phase with more clarity, and we see deep truth. It's a visionary time. It's a deep, deep visionary time where we can release, and whatever comes up during PMS, whatever is ready to go, because if we're feeling like a lot of shame or fear or like anything like that, we can release it with our blood. We can release it when we are releasing what's coming, like what's happening for us. So it is its own ritual. And then ovulation, like what seeds are you planting? What are you, like, you know, it's so powerful. And it's like the energies of like ovulation is summer, you know, it's like everything is blossoming and blooming, and then you go into fall, and then you go into winter, and then you go into spring. So that's also deeply connecting you with the natural, like with the cycles of nature. So you are nature, and this experience brings you so close to your power, like in all of the self-work that we would have to do anyway, we can do it more intentionally and also feeling so deeply held. So I'm a huge fan of ritualizing it, and like each part, not just your menstruation, but actually like each phase of your cycle, like working with the energies of each phase, actually planning your, if it's accessible to you, like planning meetings and things for when you're ovulating, and putting like more of the workload during that time when your hormones are supporting you to be more productive, to have more of a way of multitasking. And then when you're going into PMS and then menstruation, like having less on your plate, like really allowing that to slow down and to connect deeply with yourself and to really feel what's alive for you. And it brings you home to yourself in such a deep, profound way.
I love that so much. I can't even tell you how much I love that. And I feel like everything you said about the menstrual cycle, about everything today is just really a reframing of how we look at our bodies, because we've really been taught to look at them in a certain way, and it's so shameful and it takes us away from all that our bodies have to offer. Like I think, you know, with the luteal and menstrual phases or PMS and your period, it's like you're really taught that that is a time when you can't trust yourself. Like that is a time when you can't trust what you're feeling, what you're thinking. Oh, you're on your period, you're just PMSing. Like wait until you've calmed down, when it's like that's when I'm most connected to myself. Like that's when I see the biggest truths. That's when I know what is and isn't right for me. And like I think it was Elisa Vitti's book, In the Flow.
Oh, so good.
Oh, do we love her?
Oh, do we love Elisa?
When she talks about like those are actually the best times to break up with somebody. When like normally,
that's what I did.
Yes, because that's when you fucking know yourself, and it's like,
Yeah.
but we're taught no. That's when the time when you shouldn't make any major decision. Like that's why menstruating individuals can't be in positions of power, because
Right.
there's these times in their cycle when they're not in their right mind, and it's like that's bullshit.
Yeah, I love that you said it was like we just have less of a capacity to deal with bullshit.
Yeah,
That's
this-
completely true. This would piss me off normally, and right now I'm just saying it right now before you
Yes.
piss me off even more, or like whatever it is, you know?
But society wants us to have a huge capacity for bullshit. They want us to
Yeah.
put up with bullshit. They don't want us to be connected to ourselves, because then we're too fucking powerful. Just saying.
Yeah.
There she goes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And listen, the biggest conditionings that we get is to be pretty and perfect and pleasing. And menstruation is the one thing that's like, fuck that noise. Like,
She ain't pretty.
I am showing up as like this, like raw, primal, powerful, like just clear experience. And it's, truth can be really uncomfortable. It can be really just an ass-kicking experience. And at the end of the day, like, you know, it's so necessary to bring us to aliveness, and like following your menstrual cycle and connecting and communing with yourself in those spaces ultimately leads to your deepest truth and your deepest aliveness, because you're with yourself. You're not leaving yourself. You're not abandoning yourself. You're in it. You're listening. You're communing. And it makes you like unfucking stoppable. Like it's just so powerful. It's such a tremendous experience. So yeah, thank you for bringing that here. It's so perfect.
Yes, you're speaking to my soul.
Yeah.
It's like, why would I be pretty when I can be beautiful? Like aliveness is beautiful. Authenticity is beautiful. Like fuck pretty. That doesn't fucking matter. Like, I don't know. I said like when you were saying like, you know, we were taught to be pretty, and I was like, oh, like she ain't pretty, because menstruation isn't pretty, but it is beautiful. I think those are such different things.
I wouldn't say that I've had as strong of a connection and interest like Cass has had for menstruation. Like since the day I met you, I knew that was like a big passion for you. But I have, for the last couple years, even though I have really strong periods, as in like I have bad cramps, I have like really bad days or whatever, I've had such an aversion to like wanting to mute any of it, like taking medicine and stuff. It's been such a thing that like I haven't wanted to do subconsciously, because like I want to feel it and I want to be there with what's happening in my body. And I mean, Cass, yours are worse than mine, but cramps wise, like they can get pretty bad. Like it's been hard, but it's like I want to feel it, and I haven't really understood why. But I love like growing into the definition of like how that can just be so powerful. It's like my womanhood that I just love about being myself. So it's like it's been really interesting to like my relationship with my period as I've gotten a little bit older and wise and powerful. Yeah. It's just incredible.
So beautiful. I also, I have a menstrual magic guide that goes into like all of the different phases, rituals for each phase. And then I have the pre-recorded rituals and the playlists for each of the phases to drop you in and connect with whatever's coming up for you around that. So if you are interested in going deeper, that's also fully available.
Fantastic. That'd be so awesome. I fucking love it. All right. Well, we have gotten to the great phase. We're talking about menstrual phases so much. The great part of our episode where we like to do homework for honeys. where we talk about one actionable step we can all take to start incorporating everything that we talked about today. So, Ani, would you do everyone the pleasure of assigning some homework?
Yes. So my homework that I'm suggesting is to start to connect with your body in a way that has no agenda. So that means before you go to bed or when you wake up in the morning, simply place your hands, like maybe one hand over your heart, maybe one hand over your lower belly, maybe over your pussy, your genitals, whatever. And simply connect and just feel what's alive for you. And when I say that, I mean, feel for any sensation. Let your body know that you're listening. Let your body know that you're here. And maybe even if you're feeling called, connect with your sexual energy. Just feel like, what does this sexual energy actually feel like in my body? Can I connect with it? Can I bring it to life even a little bit more? Can I breathe into it and see what color is it, and just start to get curious about your body. And you can even self-pleasure with no agenda, whatever feels good for you. And you can go from there. But that is my small actionable step for everybody listening, is just to commune with your body with no other agenda, but to just listen and connect.
I love it.
Yeah, I think it starts to build those neural pathways of I can do this. This is accessible for me. That's why we love Homework for Honeys, because it breaks it down to just first step. Well, where can our listeners continue to connect with you? Because I know they're going to want to.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm really active on the gram. So that's Ani_Ferlise. Should I spell that out, or is that?
It'll be in the show notes, so they can just head straight to the show notes and click on it, and you'll be right there.
Yeah,
that was a good plug to look at our show notes.
Yeah, read them. I spend time on them. Anyways, continue.
Perfect. And AniFerlise.com as well, where you can find a bunch of rituals, and you can find the bundles. I have one for the moon cycles. I have one for the menstrual cycles. I have the Sex Magic ebook and ritual that's completely free, so you can have access to that.
Let's dive right in.
Let's dive right out, if you will.
Oh,
yeah.
If you will, let's step out of the pool.
Step out of the pool now, because
have we been diving into a pool this whole time? Because that feels anticlimactic. Anyways, let's dive on out so I can thank all of you. And thank you, Ani, so much for being on the podcast. Literally a magical dream to have you on and be able to talk with you and consider you our friend. It's just beautiful. And then thank you to our listeners for sticking with us. We really hope that you got something out of some sex magic. Yeah, because we sure did. Let's get all the sex magic going.
Every damn night.
Yes.
All the spells.
Oh, I love it all. If you have a few minutes, please head over to Apple Podcasts, rate, review, and subscribe to Honey Do Me. Your reviews mean so much to us. They help us get out to other people. We believe in this information. Everybody deserves to know these things. Even if they don't connect with everyone deserves to have this information. So please, please, please rate, review, and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Baby.
I was going to say motherfucker, but baby's nice.